So, ladies and gentlemen, 10 o'clock. Yeah, in order to not take up too much of your esteemed time, kindly allow me to thank all of you for being with us this morning. We are continuously admitting guests for this session on e-commerce. We had more than 70 registrations. So far I see 15 in that meeting, but as we saw it in the previous sessions, over the next couple of minutes, there will be certainly many more to join us. I'm very glad, I'm very happy to have all of you for this very important session this morning. And I'm particularly blessed and delighted to have such a senior group of panelists. And if you allow me, dear guests, I'm going to give just one a small technical advice, and we go right into it. The technical advice would be that I would request our guests to mute the microphone so that we don't have an echo on our at our end. And I would request our guests to actively participate in this session. So if you raise your hand or if you use the chat, if you have questions, please do so, and I will direct these questions then to the group of panelists. It is my big pleasure to introduce to you very briefly the three panelists. And I'm very happy that Dr. Sherif Farouk is with us. Dr. Farouk is the CEO of Egypt Post. He was appointed in May 2020. And prior to that, Dr. Farouk spent most of his experience in banking. He has over 29 years of banking experience, having previously been involved, among other topics, in the restructuring of banks and financial institutions. Mr. Farouk, may I ask you to briefly introduce yourself and to give our audience an idea of your involvement in e-commerce?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, and it's an honor to be with you, with your guests. As you mentioned earlier, my previous experience exceeding 30 years in banking, involving in restructuring some of national and international banks. Also, one of the social banks was Nöther Bank. And here is the challenge in Egypt Post. Our challenge mainly in the e-commerce and electronic payments, and after the COVID-19, the chances are increasing day after day. We are doing a great job, and my colleagues are doing a great job in enhancing the services that we are using, and we are presenting to our clients that exceeds 23 million of Egyptians dealing with Egypt Post. Thank you for having me, and looking forward for fruitful conversation.
Dr. Farouk, thank you very much for your introduction. Allow me, dear guests, to move to our second panelist, Mr. Hesham Safwat. He is an experienced CEO with a demonstrated history of working in the internet industry. He is the CEO of the leading e-commerce platform Jumia in Egypt. He holds a master degree in business information technology from Middlesex University and Bachelor of Engineering from Hesham University. Mr. Safwat, may I pass the word to you in order to briefly introduce yourself? I believe you don't have to introduce what you're doing in e-commerce, since that's your business life. Good morning, Mr. Safwat.
Good morning, and happy to be here with everyone. It's an honor to be a member of this so basically, I have been working in the retail industry for almost like 20 years. I would say I was a bit lucky to witness the evolution of the organized retail back in 2002 in Egypt, and the revolution of the first wave of retail, structured retail in Egypt in 2002. I was again lucky in joining the second evolution, which is the e-commerce evolution that happened in 2010, 11, and 12. So I've been working with Jumia for almost like 8 years, and I'm currently the CEO of the venture of Jumia in Egypt. A small brief about Jumia. We are an African technology company. We exist mainly in Africa. We are built around a marketplace of sellers, logistics, and a payment platform. A very, very small brief about Jumia for those who are not aware about it.
Thank you indeed, Mr. Safwat. I believe everybody knows Jumia. In fact, I did a purchase yesterday. I couldn't do it since I don't have an account, but a colleague of mine was doing it on my behalf. So thank you very much for that support. Last not least, it's a great pleasure to introduce Mr. Ahmed El Fangari. He does not need to be introduced since he's a regular guest supporting the German Arab Chamber a lot. He is, for those of you who are with us now for the first time, he is the DHL. He worked for DHL Express Egypt for 6 years in his capacity as the CEO. He's in the industry already for nearly 20 years. He was working in different logistic areas such as freight, express, and warehousing. His reason for joining DHL was the company's values being customer-centric and its strong trust in its people, of how much it invests in training and retaining their employees to always be motivated and thriving to achieve more. Mr. El Fangari, thank you very much for having you. I read a book of your global CEO, and your values are his values. That means you're working, it seems, for the absolute right company. Kindly introduce yourself and give us an idea of your access to the field of e-commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Nöther, for the introduction, and thank you for being a moderator for this important webinar. Your Excellency, Dr. Sherif, it's a pleasure having you with us. And Hesham Beg, thank you for being with us saying this under my capacity of being the chair of the logistics committee in the German Chamber. And this is the second webinar that we do arrange under the committee. While we are talking about the e-commerce, I started actually with a certain company on a scenario or model of e-commerce back on the 1999, where the e-commerce or e-shop was a bit far away from the region, where we invented a solution for the customers. And this was successful and running so far with great growth year on year. Definitely 2020 had a big jump, and definitely we'll be talking about the progress happened in the e-commerce on this year. Thank you for having me with you, Mr. Nöther. Thank you.
Mr. Fangary, thank you indeed. And as always, a pleasure to have you. Dear guests, allow me, since we have more and more guests to join us, allow me once more a brief technical comment. Kindly mute your phones and please be actively involved. If you have a question, kindly use the chat or raise your hand. I'll pass the word to you accordingly. So going into the topic, allow me to throw a couple of statistics at you. I have figures as per January 2020. So these figures are now merely a year old, but maybe our panelists will help to update those figures during this hour. So the reported figures of internet users in Egypt increased by 9.8 million, 22% between 2019 and 2020. There are currently 54.7 million. internet users in Egypt. As I said a year ago, 54.7 million. There are 42 million social media users as per January 2020. And this number increased by 7% between April and January 2020. We have 92.7 million mobile connections in Egypt, yeah, which is equivalent to 91% of the population. And a couple of figures, yeah, or thoughts, initial thoughts to e-commerce. The Egyptian market is, of course, that's not a surprise, the largest population of internet users in the MENA region. 10% of retail sales globally go through e-commerce. However, in the Mid East region, yeah, it has reached merely 2.5%. Although the number of internet users in Egypt reached 55 million a year ago, the percentage of those who conduct electronic transactions does not exceed 8%. Most online transactions are in the categories of electronics, entertainment, airline tickets, and fashion. E-commerce faces a number of challenges in the Egyptian market since there is a low number of credit and debit card holders. Those would be around 10 million. Hence, 80% of the e-commerce in Egypt relies on cash on delivery. However, and that's the good news, the rate of credit and debit card holders, yeah, is growing annually by around 40%, which indicates that the cash dependency may decrease. Allow me, Mr. Safwat, to ask you the first question. First of all, my couple of figures I mentioned, would those be correct? Would those reflect your picture? How would you describe the current status of e-commerce, and how is Kovit currently affecting the industry?
Well, I would say that in general, the digital transformation has been happening for the past years. I mean, it's one of the, I would say the e-commerce sector in specific is one of the most growing sectors globally. And has been growing not just in the region, but definitely in different, across the whole world. Yet it was heavily dependent on what we call the early adapters, the generations, the younger generations who are raised in the new digital world. Yet the penetration was usually lower on the higher age brackets. People knew about the existence of the different type of digital platforms, yet they did not use them frequently. I mean, they know, so the awareness was there, but the adoption was not that high at in the past years. So basically, what happened mainly during the COVID-19 pandemic is that people started adapting more towards the digital shift. And we have seen that that is happening with a growing adoption rate across different age brackets. So the COVID-19 pandemic made the situation more, I would say, exciting for other people or other people who did not adapt yet to the e-commerce or the digital transformation to start trying. So the trial phase started at the beginning of the pandemic. And then definitely when you try the first trial, if it goes well, if the customer experience goes well, then you start adapting and you start going there using the digital channels more frequently. But that did not happen only on the consumer side. We have also seen that on the supply side, where we have seen both local and international brands moving fast towards the digital shift, taking e-commerce as one of their key sales channels. In the past, it was more of a secondary channel for most of the brands and the companies. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that those brands or those companies started using or making the e-commerce channel as one of their key sales channels. And that led to hiring people, building specific departments just dedicated for the channels, building products specific or adapted to a channel, moving their marketing investments towards the digital. This happened on also the supply side.
Thank you indeed. Kindly allow me just a quick question. When we look into Amazon, for example, yeah, they are perceived to be the winner of this crisis we currently face, yeah, or these challenges around COVID-19. Would you suggest that the organizations, companies to be active in key e-commerce, yeah, are yeah, let's say winners, and what kind of challenges would you have if you need to cope with the growth rates? Yeah, is the industry capable of coping with such growth rates? You need talent. You need network in place. Yeah, I mean, you need lots of finance. I would believe investments to go into that area.
Well, like you said at the beginning, the number, if we take Egypt in specific, the number of internet users are quite a lot. We're talking about almost 50 million. It's one of the biggest markets, for example, in Africa when it comes to internet penetration. Yet the number of people who shopped online, the percent, I would say around maybe 15% of this figure. So the awareness was always there, but people were not actually buying. So definitely this pandemic helped and made quite a good push for most of the e-commerce company to present their services to the audience and actually scale their business. But again, it really depends on those type of companies. I mean, there are companies that are focusing on niche markets, and there are companies who are marketplaces who are just a mirror of the existing offline market. So whatever also happens in the offline market reflects positively or negatively on the digital sector part. So it's very important to define which type of companies or which type of business models we're talking about.
Thank you indeed, Mr. Safwat. Now, there is a new act, yeah, the e-commerce act, imposing taxes. Your Excellency, Dr. Farouk, would you kindly explain to the audience the idea behind the act?
Thank you, sir. Actually, I'm not in a position to comment on the act. We are listening and learning more about this act, but I can understand the logic behind it. It's a commercial transactions at the end of the day, and it's something that has to be legalized and regularized, and we have to pay taxes on it. The thing is in the digital life or in the digitizing things, the more important thing here is to understand that numbers are lying. It's not as everybody saying that number never lie. It's not true. Number is lying, and most of people are using the internet. They are using transactions and make e-commerce business cash on delivery, and these things reflects the doubts in the digital life. So digitizing things is very important, and digitalizing the process is also more important. So I think we have to work hard, as my friend Hesham mentioned, and let me thank him for our collaboration with Jumia. We are really glad, and during our meetings and during our signing process, we talked about transferring the knowledge to the Egypt Post. So it is very important to share experience. It's very important to exchange experience between the people that took steps on this business. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much, Mr. El Fangari. Allow me to ask you, when we look into the e-commerce, I mean, it's I believe not that easy. Yeah, this number of e-commerce transactions is growing rapidly, and taxation, yeah, of those transactions, yeah, will of course lead to administrative efforts, to additional investments as well, yeah, in order to really reflect it and to be able to follow up, yeah, the taxation. So the general question, yeah, I do understand, yeah, and Your Excellency, Dr. Farouk, yeah, that the commercial transactions should be taxed, yeah, Mr. El Fangari, yeah, should e-commerce be taxed? Can you give us a little bit an idea, some pros and cons?
Yeah, I agree with His Excellency. It should be taxed. It's unfair advantage for e-commerce firms over the traditional brick and mortar. The e-commerce itself is growing rapidly. Actually, it's booming. Thus, the potential tax revenue stream to the government is substantial. So, exempting the e-commerce can have a double negative impact, as it will also decrease the yield generated from the digital, from the traditional stores. So, yeah, it should be taxed, and it is for the benefit of everyone and the government as well.
Right. How would that work? Yeah. If the taxation, yeah, or when the taxation kicks in. I mean, I fully agree with you. Yeah. I'm just trying to fully understand and to pass the message to our audience. Yeah. Right. But how would it work? Yeah. Technically. Yeah. If these transactions are going to be taxed.
It's
Mr. El Fangari. Yeah.
Yeah, we have different models. So the taxation itself, like we see in the Europe now, they are removing the de minimis, which is in Germany. But again, the taxation has to happen from not the origin. It happens from the user or the customer, the end, in the end. The percentage of taxation might be different based on the nature of goods. It might be with 0% for the essential products, and for medical supplements or medical equipments, and for a certain percentage for books, let's say, and food. The argument where that the e-commerce itself or the internet was created to foster the free exchange of information electronically. So this is the only argument that we do have against the taxation of the e-commerce. So I see the taxation should happen, and it should be paid by the customer at the customer end.
Right. Thank you indeed, Mr. Safwat. Allow me to ask: do you fear? Do you see, yeah, any reactions from the consumer end? Yeah. Do you feel that it's going to change consumer behavior, or what is your expectation when we look into the further growth of your industry? The taxation does not have any impact.
Okay, so let me step one step back just to highlight a couple of points. I mean, we need to really define what do we mean about taxation, because and in order to define that, we need also, like I said, to define the different type of companies that operates within the digital sector. But I would say, in short or in general, regulations are very important. Let's agree on that. I mean, regulations for any investor is key to increase their investments in a specific country. They need to make sure that their money is protected, and having a sector without no regulation is quite definitely, I would say, would put them in a position that might select other countries that to invest in rather than Egypt. So it's very important to have regulations, but it's also important for the regulator to understand the sector. And in order to understand the sector, we need to define the different companies that operates within this sector. So just to give you a brief of some of the examples, for example, of e-commerce that operates in Egypt currently. So we have companies that have long-term visions and operate at scale. And those companies There are few in Egypt, and on their shoulders is where the sector is built. I'm talking about the commercial side of the sector for sure, because they are heavily, first their business is loss-making business, so they lose a lot of money. So they are heavily dependent on investments, and currently most of those investments are foreign investments. We do not see up till now in Egypt local investors investing or putting heavy investments on commercial e-commerce platforms. Currently, most of the big players who actually take on their shoulder building the whole sector, not their companies only, is dependent on foreign investments. So that any type of regulation needs to take into consideration the impact on the investments that goes towards this sector. Then there are some smaller companies who are built on targeted niche model or work, for example, like hybrid model or omni-channel models. And there are others who are the mass, or the long tail, what we call the long tail companies. Those are where the mass of the informal sector lies. And those companies, or I would say small social media pages, websites, so this is where I think the problem is. And this is, I think, where the act or the regulation is actually trying to target. And it's very important because this is not an easy market to penetrate. And like you said, the numbers, how can we actually measure the numbers of those companies, of those pages? So it's not an easy thing. And again, if we only focus this act or this regulation on the organized sector or the organized part of the sector who are already paying taxes, who are already putting their the biggest share of the investments in the market, and do not have a mechanism to address the bigger part of the sector, which is the informal sector, is going to be a big problem. So this is, I think, is very important to highlight, which is basically we need to understand the market before creating any regulation.
Yes, thanks indeed. So, but what you would suggest is there is a penetration, or the main penetration comes from the big organizations, and those are mainly foreign invested organizations. Would you believe that this is going to continue, this kind of a trend, that more foreign direct investment is pouring into that sector? Since obviously, yeah, Egypt is a very interesting market given its population, given its very fast growth rates. Yeah, so the e-commerce, yeah, is offering huge potential. Or would you suggest that more local businesses, yeah, are going to build their success models in the country? How would you see that?
I think both will continue to grow unless there are any new blockers that can come on the table. But both will continue growing, and both are important. You need foreign investments because, again, like I said, the e-commerce business on its own is a loss-making business when you make it at scale. Then there are some local businesses or local investments that are also heavily needed because this is the aim, this is the target. You're bringing foreign investments to support the growth of the sector, but also you want to build a local base of companies that can actually operate within this new sector.
Dr. Farouk, would you, before I ask a more technical question, would you agree to this earlier assessment, with investments into that sector?
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with that. Yes, Egypt is a good place for, and it's a lucrative area for such investment, direct investment. We are looking for this direct investments to come to Egypt, and by having the international firms on ground with us is open a new challenge for our heavy clientele base in Egypt.
If I may ask you from a more technical side, now the act is in place, yeah. So is Egypt, are we ready to apply such taxes? Do we have the data management, the infrastructure, the technological framework, yeah, in place? So when would your expectation be, yeah, that these taxes are to be imposed? What needs to be done?
Sharing data and the big data that we have in our area is the most important thing. So nobody can work alone. Sharing data and enhancing the data, digitalizing things is the gate for this collaboration. By starting joint ventures and signing contracts with the international firms in Egypt, this will allow the DFIs to come to Egypt. So the main stream or the goal is the big data. Are we ready or not? Is if this is the question. We are progressing. We are on the right track. The Ministry of Communication and other important firms are working hard in digitalizing and sharing the data with everybody. The media is ready, and if we can say the telecom companies are also ready for such a business. So collaboration is the name of the game. If somebody or one firm or one institute is working hard on the digitalizing and enhancing the data alone without sharing the data, this will never help us in growing the e-commerce business in Egypt.
Thank you indeed. Allow me at this point, yeah, to of course invite our guests. Yeah, I see now the first, hand. Yeah, now it's gone again, at least at my end. Yeah, please, if there is a question or
Miss Alia Rohaim, I believe, has a question.
yes, then I would pass the word. Yeah, if you unmute. Now I see the hand again. If you unmute your phone and maybe you switch on your camera, kindly go ahead.
Sure. Good morning. My picture is going to be up in a minute. It's just a matter of internet connectivity. Speaking of digitalization, but that's okay. I have a good morning to all, and I'm really happy to be part of that, and I consider myself pretty lucky that I came across the announcement on LinkedIn. And the question I had was actually related to the application of the act. I wouldn't really. I'm not very concerned about the numbers, as in how much taxes are we talking about, percentage, the difference in process products versus finished products, which has always been a main criteria for evaluating how much taxes a company is applied to. And I believe the panelists have more experience as far as this is concerned. But I've been in the retail business for 17 years, and the last few years have been more into on the e-commerce side. And I'm specifically talking about the food and beverages sector. I'm not talking about electronics, and that's the interest of my current company. We provide raw products, I would say high quality gourmet ones, in different protein categories, let's say it this way. My main concern is not the act and the percentage, because that's probably something we're going to read about in the journal, rather than the readiness of the tax authority. Because as Mr. Hesham mentioned, this is a very different sector. And I would say that despite the evolution that the Egyptian market has witnessed as far as the e-commerce side is concerned, we're still on the baby step side. So what I'm really concerned with is the details, because this is where the devil is. How is it going to be evaluated, whether it is revenue, profit, transaction, or whatever? Are we taking into consideration the infrastructure cost in terms of setup? And Hesham would probably correct me if I'm wrong, that's huge if we're talking about an e-commerce platform. And how is this going, and how qualified or trained the tax authorities members will be actually visiting those companies to check the records, evaluate the books, and then decide on the tax percentage? I believe that's the real question when it comes to the process of the application, irrespective of the tax percentage.
Ms. Rohaim, thank you very much. Allow me to direct, since I saw a moving head at Mr. Safwat's end, to direct your comment-question to Mr. Safwat.
Sure.
No, so definitely, I see it more of like a question, not directly to me, but I share the same, I would say, points shared in the remark, because definitely, yes, the details, like I said, and the understanding of the sector is very important. But again, I would say we need really to understand the objective of this new regulation. I mean, the objective is very important, and I think it should be announced. I mean, we should clearly share the objective of any regulation or act being enforced in the country, so that we, as not just members of the sector, but also as a normal consumer or a user, I would understand the reason behind it. So is it more of regulating the informal sector, which is something that I think from a consumer or I would say a sector member, both sides would agree that is very important, because at the end, it helps in improving the quality of the services provided in that sector, differentiates the good players from the bad players, and at the end, it goes in the benefit of the consumer, who is the most important part in this. So it's very important, again, to say, to mention the objective of this regulation, or this act, so that we as users or members of the sector would clearly understand and help actually in the implementation of it.
Thanks indeed, Your Excellency. Any additions to the remark of Mr. Safwat? Dr. Farouk?
No, thank you. I think Hesham said it all, and yes, we need to understand more, and let's wait until the resolution come to real life.
This is what I wanted to hear, Dr. Farouk. Yeah, some of these topics, we may be a little bit premature. We need to be a little bit patient in order to see what are going to be the next steps in order to implement it. Allow me, Mr. El Fangari, you want to comment on that?
I agree with Dr. Sherif and Hesham on that. It's immature for the time being, but in the process of doing a corridor talks and process of having it is for differentiating the bad player than the good player in the market. And this is one of the key thing of having the regulator or doing this process as in e-commerce. So this is what we are hearing, and this is what we are supporting.
Then, Mr. El Fangari, let's go a little bit beyond Egypt. Since you're working for a global company, you may have an idea. Frankly, I don't. But you may have an idea. How this is being done in Germany. That does DHL apply taxes on e-commerce, and if so, how is that being done?
Okay, so first of all, it's not DHL who's applying taxes. It's the government was applying taxes. So
sure.
is just collecting the amounts from the consumer. So taxes in Germany actually is higher than Egypt. VAT is a broad-based consumption tax levied on the sale of all supplies of goods and services in Germany. And e-commerce, the VAT is calculated on the rate for the person that purchased the item instead of where the e-commerce company is headquartered. The standard VAT rate in Germany is 19%, and the reduced rate for certain products, as mentioned earlier, is 7%, such books, food, hotels, booking, and etc. So, the VAT de minimis will be removed as of July this year. So the abolition of 22 euros for imports into Europe, resulting formal customs clearance for all inbound EU shipments, and levying VAT affects shipments from everywhere in the world to the European Union. And this is what the impact of and the customers will result in the requirement of formal customs declaration for all inbound EU shipments. In Germany, they do have taxation, and they set it with certain percentage or different percentage. Actually, the e-commerce is something good for everyone, even for Egypt now. For fashion designer to sell abroad is going massively. A lot of designers in Egypt are having an outbound shipment, which is a great thing for happening now for Egypt for export.
Mr. El Fangari, thank you indeed. I believe we established, that the need for the tax payments, that is certainly genuine. My question is a little bit directed into the technical parts. Is that an additional investment to the corporate sector in order to get ready, to collect the taxes before passing the taxes to the tax offices? Is there heavy investment? Can it be adjusted easily, if the governmental structure says now we want to increase the tax burden, or we want to decrease the tax burden? Or is that a difficult exercise?
No, it's the easy one. Our systems are flexible, and we implement it based on the government regulations or government percentage. So no, it's the investment already done. Systems are ready for that.
Great. Okay. Thanks for that. Allow me to pass the word quickly to Mr. Mohammed Talat. He had a question, I hear. Mohammed Talat, Mr. Talat. Since we can't hear you now, kindly allow me then to quickly pass the word to Ms. Hala Salama. You wrote a comment in there. You may wish to address our panelists verbally. Okay, Miss Rohaim, then unmute your phone and your mic, and you may rephrase your question that you get a satisfactory answer.
No, it's fine. I just that I believe, as the panelists mentioned, maybe it's too early to discuss that. I had expectations joining the session that we will be discussing technicalities as far as the act is concerned, but obviously, because the act has already been communicated to our company by our tax lawyer.
So, but it seems a little bit premature to discuss the technicality. This is what I get out of the discussion.
Looks like that, yes.
Yeah. So then allow me to carry on. Please, guests, if there is a question from your end, raise your hand so I can see it, yeah, in order to pass the word to you. Allow me, Dr. Farouk, yeah, the Egypt Post started to open operating increasing number of offices digitally. Yeah, so the future is digital, yeah, for the Egypt Post as well. Yeah, how would that impact, yeah, your number of, yeah, offices, yeah, since digital transactions go up, means physical, yeah, visits to your offices go down. Will that have a medium long-term impact on the number of your offices?
No, I don't think so. Digitalizing the branches or our offices is something to help our clients in financial inclusion. But talking about our clientele base, this has a relation with the culture of our Egyptian society. Our Egyptian society are very, very attached to Egypt Post offices and branches, and the physical attendance and the physical relationship is more important than the digital. This is our role, is teaching our client and enhancing the business is one of our goals. Facilitating and enabling the digital platform is one thing, but teaching and trying to onboard our clients is also an important issue. Let me emphasize on what is Mr. Fangary said, that if this investments made in DHL in taxation and helping, this is very important also to help us in Egypt Post. So I think, Mr. Nöther, your interference and your help as Dutch attaché will help us in making a good relation with DHL and others, and transferring the knowledge and technical assistance to Egypt Post.
Well,
I mean,
with pleasure, Doctor.
yeah.
Would love to always cooperate as usual with the Egypt Post.
Yeah, we are. I just wanted to say, Mr. El Fangari, thank you very much, Dr. Farouk. We are at your service. Yeah, our aim is, yeah, to foster the economic relations between Egypt and Germany. And certainly, if there is anything to share, we'd be very eager and happy to do so. Now, yeah, looking into, we established as well as different services, of course, will have different taxation. Yeah, Mr. El Fangari, I would believe, yeah, that if they're online digital medical services, they may even be free of taxes. Yeah, we'll see that. Yeah, but we can basically schedule online appointments. Yeah, have video consultations. Yeah, this is fantastic. Now, if we assume this is free of any kind of a taxation, are there other fields you would see that the taxmen, the tax offices may be considering to exempt from taxes?
I can directly think of items that will improve the living standards for the citizens, like that. This include food, non-prescription medications, books, and other educational material, while the spreading of e-commerce business can give access to many sectors that can't reach in a traditional ways. The transfers of intangible property, advertising services, legal services, and supplying of information. Those what I can think of.
Right, right. Yeah, thanks indeed. I just read a comment. E-commerce remains the only channel to support and grow new products and small entrepreneurs. Yeah, Mr. Safwat, you would absolutely agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah, I assume.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, one way to use, if the objective, again, I'm speaking again the objective, if the objective is to regulate the informal sector that exists in the e-commerce landscape, then I think there should be some attracting packages for especially for SMEs to join the digital sector, and which is on its own, it's a fully structured formal sector, but it's now filled with a lot of informal ones. So you can apply the tax model in a way that can attract those SMEs who can operate within a formal sector, a formal regulated sector, but by giving them some incentives, tax incentives at the beginning, so that they can join this. Speaking about how we're going to collect the numbers, then you can easily apply, because you're going to take incentives, and actually beside incentives, they can actually get benefits like ability to get bank loans. I mean, all those type of benefits can also attract them.
I would fully agree. I just gave an interview yesterday, and in fact, this is something I mentioned during that interview. Now, the digitalization goes, of course, for lots of small companies, or provides a little bit of challenge. Yeah, since on the one hand, you have to concentrate on your product, you have to concentrate on your strategies, you have to grow, you have to concentrate on technicalities of the product range, and then you need to, of course, bring product to market, and that requires training. Yeah, Dr. Farouk, you mentioned earlier that this kind of training is essential. So you would train your customers, you would train, of course, your employees as well. Now the question is, if we bring our view into the mind of a small entrepreneur, what would you suggest this entrepreneur shall do in order to widen the base of skills in order to successfully market product through digitalization? Where can this person go in order to get assistance, to get help?
Go to the post office.
Thanks indeed. Yeah, we'll have more than 50 people. Yeah, who heard you. Yeah, we'll come to you. Yeah, Mr. El Fangari, allow me to ask you. Yeah, now we go either to the post office, or we go to the German Chamber, or we go to DHL, right?
Yes, for sure. But Egypt Post and DHL are working together. So either you go to Egypt Post, you will get the DHL service anyhow.
Yeah. Now I received one more question. However, I believe we have a kind of an answer. Of course, taxes means, from a consumer point of view, taxes mean additional costs, right? And that's customers here and there needs to be convinced to increase these additional costs, and otherwise they may try to work with suppliers in order to avoid these additional costs. It might create some pressure on the pricing as such to stay competitive. Don't forget, the main customer in this field is basically a consumer for the day-to-day goods. So if we talk about convincing consumers to accept these additional costs, do you see, Mr. Safwat, do you see any pressure on prices or competitive scenarios? Is there going to be a price war, a digital price war, given these tech scenarios?
It really depends, because again, like I said, the formal sector in the digital sector is already paying taxes, because all the commercial transactions are taxable transactions. Yet definitely the informal sector, which again I said it's one of the biggest part or share of the sector, will definitely be impacted, because the price definitely will be impacted on the price. Yet, again, you have to look at it from several angles, not just angle on the price, because also if this informal sector is being regulated, then the customer at the end will also maybe get a bit of a higher price, but a better service, which is controlled by the government, more regulated. So this adds on top of definitely the price. Yeah.
Right, right. Thank you very much. Now, since we are approaching 11 o'clock, I have a question, and allow me, I would start with Mr. El Fangari. So to give you, Dr. Farouk, you, Mr. Safwat, the chance to think about an answer for 1 minute. If we look into the crystal ball, where would you see the digital business model in 5 years from now in Egypt?
Everything is going digital. Actually, DHL had already a digital plan, which we speeded up 3 years. Like we achieved in 2020, the 3 years plan that we were not seeing it would happen if the COVID the pandemic came in 2020. So the digital is now everything. Everything is going into digital. We are now the norm of our business having such a webinar instead of having conferences or meetings face to face. So the world is changing. People are getting used to more digital world. So I think everything will be digital. Hope after 5 years we have human on the ground who manage this digital and not robots anymore. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Mr. Safwat, what would be your views? We lost you earlier. I saw that. Now we may have lost you again. So allow me, Dr. Farouk. No, you're here?
Yes. No, but you can Dr. Farouk.
No. I would. Now I see you again. I would grant Dr. Farouk the final word of this session, if you allow me, Mr. Safwat.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah, but first, if you look into the crystal ball, Mr. Safwat, 5 years from now, where do we stand? Digital business, Egypt.
So I think Egypt is still one of the most, one of the biggest potential markets in the digital sector. I see in 5 years adoption rates increasing significantly. I see the digitalization, not just from the commercial standpoint, but also from the payment part. So the digital payment penetration increasing to bigger shares from what we see right now. I see cash on delivery decreasing a lot. I see more sectors entering the digital e-commerce sector. I see products that you do not see them being significantly sold online right now. In 5 years will be a normal, I would say, trend that you can easily go online and buy them. So I see definitely a big potential there in 5 years because Egypt, as being part of Africa, this is like the last untapped markets in the digital scene. So there is huge potential here, and we're very optimistic, definitely.
Thank you indeed. Your Excellency, Dr. Farouk. So Egypt is going to be the backbone of the African digital industry, and the Egypt Post in 5 years is going to be run digitally. How would you see the digital business in Egypt in 5 years from now?
Thank you. I can see it is moving very fast. This rapid change and this digital life is moving very fast. We will see. I don't see it's in the 5 years. It's maybe in 3 years. We will see a lot of changes. The telecom companies, the logistic companies, the financial sectors, the blockchain, the encrypted currencies, the double spending question. This will all go together, and we will see new players in the market. We will see appetite in the market. We will see collaboration between international firms and Egyptian banking sector. We will see a lot of changes in the Central Bank of Egypt law. I will say I can say that digital life is no option. This is coming, and we will use it, and we will be enforced to use it. So the question is whether the players are ready to participate and take a part of this business, new normal, or they will go behind and stay at the old systems.
And that's why, yeah, thank you very much. That is a perfect, final, comment. And we of the chamber, with Mr. El Fangari and his group of experts, we invite, of course, our guests to join us in order to exchange information, to build the experiences in order to assist this industry to grow. We started 10 o'clock sharp. We stop 11 o'clock sharp. Dear panelists, thank you so much for your insights, for giving us an entry into your thoughts. Dear guests, thank you so much for joining us. Have a successful day today and hope to see you soon again. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr.